Right, let's break that down in full. Right, full truth. This is the first time in life you've ever seen me sober. Somebody was like, oh, you should do an insurance job on it. And I was like, what do you mean? They were like, well, you insure it and then you pretend it's been nicked in a burglary. And I was like, sounds easy, that. I had a friend who did double glazing for a living, and he took the window out, ran in and opened all the drawers with these gloves on, and that rang the police, put an insurance claim in. The insurance company paid out £21,500.
Did you think you'd made it then?
When I got the deal for my first solo album, I thought I was Robbie Williams.
What do you mean you paid Lil Wayne?
Paid Lil Wayne 10 grand.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, it's on Spotify.
My money, young money.
What was the lowest point through your addiction?
Nobody can understand an addict like another addict. At one point, I even pretended to be sober for 2.5 years. I did everything right except for the only mistake I made doing this. The thing that got me caught is I told people about it. Terrified. Christ, I'm going to jail.
So today we are joined by Hedgehog Man, Craig. I know you're his Daft CEO. A lot of people in the Northeast probably know you're his Daft CEO.
Yeah.
The reason that I wanted to get you on the podcast, mate, was because I know that your story's mad. I know you from way back when the ads had TV days, when I was filming rappers and singers, and your name was everywhere. The stuff that you've done in music and stuff. But let me just stop talking about your story. Tell us your story, mate, and who are you?
I'm basically a lad from Battle Hill and Wallsend. I'm a rave MC from the days of the After Dark back in the 90s. Turned into a rapper. I turned into a businessman, owned my own CD and DVD distribution company, record label, film production company. Then turned sort of songwriter, and now YouTuber. So quite a bit of cover.
What got you into the music stuff?
Back when I was a kid, like when because I was born in 1980, I'm 44 now. Oh, you don't look at Craig, thanks, mate. Yeah, like Michael Jackson, Guns N' Roses, stuff like that. Back from us being like 7, 8 years old, that's when I remember really, really first getting into music.
Why rap then, Craig? Because I know that obviously the Northeast, mate. I know quite a cohort of rappers and stuff. And I loved doing that. I love filming all the rappers and singers. It was class. It was, honestly, mate, to date, it's the most passion I've ever had for anything.
Really?
Honestly, mate, I was actually speaking to someone today about this. Like, I did it for free. Mm-hmm. Never made any money, but it was the happiest I've probably ever been in terms of my creative stuff. And just, there was something special about that time for me when people were just getting... I remember I did a cypher with a bunch of lads, mate, and we did it in someone's garage. Yeah. And we hit like 1,000 views. And I remember we had like a 1K party.
Yeah.
Just... 1K pot. That's how buzzing we all were, just to put stuff out in the world.
Do you find one thing I've found, right, is that when you've started in this like entertainment industry, right, trying to push Northeast rap music, like with your whole heart in it, like we both have, then when you apply those talents to something else like this, it feels easy in comparison. Because no one's interested, well, hardly anybody's interested in Northeast hip-hop.
But I remember when because your name used to pop up all the time, and I remember you've recorded all over the world and that, haven't you?
Yeah. So
how do you go from just a lad from Wallsend to actually, you've recorded in New York and that, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been out in New York 9 times.
How do you manage to do it? Like,
well, when I was 12 years old, somebody gave us a tape at school, and one side of the tape was Ice-T's original Gangsta album, and the other side was Eazy-E's Easy Does It album. And from that second on, I was just hooked. I was like, I'd never heard anything like it. I was dead young, so I was even impressed that there was swearing in music and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, this is what I want to do. So I set off on a path to do it. I just started writing songs in my bedroom. Back then, I didn't know any producers or anything like that. So to get an instrumental to rap on, I would buy a CD single of a hip-hop track I liked, and on the CD single, maybe track 3 or 4 would be the instrumental, and I would write to that, because that's basically all I had to work with. And then just progressing on. But then when I got like 15, 16 and that, I started going to raves, and MCing at the time to like After Dark, Judgment Day stuff was as close to rapping as I could get. So I started doing that for a bit. And I became pretty successful doing that. I became resident MC at the After Dark in South Shields. And they were paying, the wages for an MC were ridiculous. They were like £15 a night. So they were like, well, we've got one wage available, but we want to hire you and this other kid. So will you split the wage? So they were trying to pay us like £7.50 for the night. And I was like, just keep it. Do you know what I mean? Just give it to him. Mad. What I did was I started making tapes in my bedroom when my mates DJing, me MCing, and then printing covers out for them, taking them around all the local record shops like Rhythm Records in Wallsend, MOS Music in Whitley Bay. There was Reflex, Flying Records and Bass Generator in town. There was one in Washington. There was one in Blythe. I can't remember the names of them all. All those record shops are closed now. But
Spinning Disc in Sunderland.
Spinning Disc in Sunderland was a massive one for a massive outlet for it. The old guy that runs that, I don't know if he's still alive, but he was sound as they come, him. And I would duplicate these tapes. Used to go to Argos and buy Bush 90-minute tapes because on the actual cassette itself, it didn't have the Bush branding. It just looked blank, so it didn't look like you just bought a tape, like a TDK or a Sony or something. Copy these one at a time in my bedroom, and then take them to the shops, print the covers out, cut them out with scissors, put them in, give them to the shops, and put them on the shop shelves for £7. Go back like a month later. Anything that sold, they'd give us £4 a unit back for. And if after a while they hadn't sold a certain title, so many copies of a certain title, I'd take the tapes back and I'd tape something else over them and sell them. And before I knew where I was doing an air conditioning apprenticeship at the time. I was getting like £330 a month, but I was making £1,000 a month off tapes. You know what I mean? And
So
it's
you
like,
just weigh it up a bit.
yeah, and that's been an ongoing thing with me throughout everything I've done. I've always found a way to make money out of it. Like very early doors.
It's funny with you, Craig, because I know that, again, because of my journey, I'm very aware of what's going on. I always have been. I've always had my finger on the pulse with music or fitness or whatever it may be. When I get into something, I'm definitely like, I get obsessed about it, and that's all I want to know. I want to know the ins and outs, how it works, how to make money out of it, how to grow, how to do. I always want to know who's the best, who can I learn from, no matter what it is. And you were definitely always someone that I would look at and go, I remember, I'm sure you did like an interview with MC Blizzard. You had, obviously, Seuss was kicking around at the time. You had Silver. All these lads who were kind of putting... They were like the main guys. Like, so for me, it was always like a Seuss, a Max Gavin. So people who don't know, it was yourself. Obviously, there was more people coming through from my area, like Sunderland and that. And I feel like a lot of people would always say you were the guy, like, but he's the main one. How did that come? Did that reputation come quick? Was that something you wanted?
It was basically a case of there was nobody doing anything of any merit on a national or an international scale. And when I started doing things for myself, all my friends followed. Like GJ was signed to me, who's now Graham from, what's it called?
EHC.
EHC, aye. And what happened was, back in the MySpace days, this is where the international side of things came from. Back in the MySpace days, I just went through every American rapper I quite liked. I sent them a message on MySpace and said, how much would you do a track with us for? And the majority of them would come back and say like $10,000 US. And I would just try me luck with some of them and say, well, I've got 1,000. Will you do us a quick 16? And some of them said, yes, I got Cool G rap like that, Raekwon from Wu-Tang Clan like that, Capadonna from Wu-Tang. There's a verse for about $600. It was about £400 at the time. But then when you put that out as a Northeast rap, everybody goes, whoa, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course they do.
So it was a very easy thing to do. In my eyes, I just had the balls to ask and a little bit of money to spend.
Where were you getting the money from? Because obviously pumping, I know what it's like, mate, when I was buying camera equipment or filming or travelling up and down the country, I wasn't getting any money back, but I was putting everything I could ever get or gather up into this. Was that something you were doing and all?
Yeah. I mean, to start with, in the early days, I was working in call centres. I was still doing my rave tapes up until I did my rave tapes from 96.
You alright, people? Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Here's a random one for you. Most of you who are actually watching this episode don't actually subscribe to it, so just do us a favour, will you? Can you click the like button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss another episode, hit subscribe, all that good stuff, because we go up and down the country to try and bring you the best show possible. We're not messing around here, so please just show some love, will you?
Rave tapes and CDs up until about 2003 I did them, but I was DJing as well, so I was working full time in a call centre 90% of the time when I'd not been sacked for something daft, and then DJing at least 3 nights a week, and like you say, like I suppose it was like an addiction at the time, because every penny, every possible spare penny I had, I would put into the music, and for the first couple of years the money didn't come back from that side of music. But in my eyes, if I make money in DJing and then I'm spending it on hip-hop stuff, it's still the music supporting the music, if that makes any sense.
Did you have support from everyone around you? I know obviously you've had a few peers and stuff who followed you into the music scene and done their own things and stuff, but I remember I had Shaq on the podcast, and with every music artist or entrepreneur or I feel like we've all got a bit of like that dog in us.
Yeah.
Like regardless of getting money back, it's I want to do this grind, but it's quite delusional, really.
Yes, yeah, it's 100%.
And you look
that
people
was the
around
word
you
I was
like,
go- that's
what
the
you
exact
doing?
word I was going to use, delusional.
Did you
have
find
to be
that?
delusional.
Did you
Yeah.
find that though? Did you find that people were like, what you doing, Dap?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, hip hop wasn't what it was now back then either. Like, a lot of my mates in high school used to say racist things to me because I listened to hip hop. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't as culturally accepted as it is now. It's pop music now, but it wasn't then. You know what I mean? Albums were for sale in HMV, but they were import only. A lot of the, like Ice-T's and artists like that didn't even get UK releases. And I've always had like me parents used to think I was absolutely insane. And so did those around us, because the people around us are going to raves every week. And I'm like booking, National Expresses to go to London. I went to go and see Eminem in 1999. People were saying like Slim Shady LP to him. People at the Astoria in London, and my friends were like, Eminem, who are they?
That's mad, that, innit?
Do you know what I mean? Like a 2,000 cap venue in Eminem back in those days, and that's. But I was always, you know what? I never thought I'd see the day when hip hop became what it did over here.
Yeah.
And I never thought there'd be any really worldwide successful UK hip hop artists.
You've always
But it still
been
didn't
like
stop me.
an early adopter, though, haven't you? You've always been someone who was catching on to trends quick. I know, obviously, you've got multiple YouTube channels, distribution companies, you name it. You've done it. I've seen a lot of ventures that you've did over the years, whether they've succeeded or not. You've always been anytime I see you on social media, you're doing something.
Yeah.
And I always know if someone's doing that, they're hustling, regardless. So it's a matter of time for one of them, does well. And I suppose it's about finding happiness in the thing that does well. It's not just about making something do well. I think it's really important to understand that a lot of people nowadays, for instance, want to create content on social media. They do it and they think, what am I even doing it for? It's important to understand what you're actually doing this for. With you, Craig, what would you say the highlight of your journey's been? Like, who is there anyone in particular that you've worked with? Was there a memorable moment? Is it like, I am very proud of that?
You know what, the thing I'm proud about the most at the moment, and I had this realization just last night, is I realized that for the first time in my life, I think I love myself properly now. And we'll get to it in a bit, but I've had problems with addiction and very bad problems with addiction over the years and stuff like that. In terms of performing, probably the pinnacle moment for me was Top Boy, when I was in Top Boy round here. Our second gig was at the O2 in London.
I remember.
And that was like a really big deal for me to be able to step on stage at such a prestige venue.
Did you think you'd made it then?
Oh, I thought I'd made it long before then.
Did you?
I thought when I got the deal for my first solo album, I thought I was fucking Robbie Williams. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So for someone listening or watching, right, obviously there's a lot of people from the Northeast who watch this podcast. What is the Instagram versus reality version of that? So when you get a solo album record deal,
right?
What happens?
Okay.
Is it good money? How does it work? What happens?
Right. Let's break that down in full.
Let's do
right.
it.
Full truth. I was in prison in 2003 for an insurance fraud. During that time, that's when I started not just writing raps or writing MC verses, but writing in song format. The album that was out at the time was Get Rich or Die Trying. I was very heavily influenced by that. And I like 50's ability to actually like sort of half sing his own choruses and have more like melodic patterns in the verses and stuff. So I was writing an album basically based on that in prison. When I got out, this guy I went to school with called Dominic Peters, he still puts music out to this day under the name Domzilla. Go and check him out. He went to school with us. He was the only producer I knew. Turns out he was really good. He got signed to Virgin. Virgin had a subsidiary called Wordplay, I think it was called, that Mark B and Blade and Fallacy and artists like that were on. He got signed to them as a producer. I convinced him, I'll pay you £1,200 over a 6-month period, because I didn't have £1,200 to produce these out, to turn these ideas I've got into finished songs. We did that. At the time, I was living in Leicester. My girlfriend at the time wanted to go to university down there, so I moved down with her. That had a big influence on me as well, because hip-hop was accepted there when I got there. Do you know what I mean? It was a very different kettle of fish down there. So I've gone in, there's a record shop that I used to go into, vinyl shop in Leicester called Too Funky. I went in there, there's a poster up on the wall, artists wanted for new Nottingham-based label. Took the number down off it, give them a ring, got an address, sent them a copy of this demo. I sent one demo out, and that label signed the album.
Mad that.
So to me, I'm like, this is easy. This is the easiest thing I've ever done. I mean, it wasn't, But the owner of the label, Ben, was also one of the main writers for Hip Hop Connection magazine. So then, from that moment on, I'm heavily featured in Hip Hop Connection magazine every month. There's full-page interviews with us. There's, every time I did a verse on a mixtape that met every issue for the next 3 or 4 years, in some way, shape, or form, my name was in that magazine, and that helped in terms of the way it looks. That back then, that was the Instagram.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that sort of thing. So that made me look like I was doing far better than I actually was. The truth of the matter is, they pressed 1,000 copies of the vinyl, a double vinyl, and I don't know how many thousand CDs, but the album didn't recoup what they spent on it, so I didn't make a penny. So technically, that album, I was the £1,200 I'd paid the producer out of pocket.
Right.
But perception of me, different kettle of fish.
Because you're a signed artist with a solo album.
That's in magazines with Tupac on the cover. Do you know what I mean?
Mind blowing that, innit? Because I think a lot of people look at that and just gone, right, he's made it, he's there.
Now what that did though is that then made me cool enough, so to speak, to start and ask other artists for things. And what really broke me as an artist, and when the money started to come in, was years later in 2005. Unfortunately, my mother passed away from cancer.
Sorry to hear that.
And the day that she passed, that she was in hospital, in her final hours, I got a lift up from Leicester. Didn't quite make it in hospital at the time, unfortunately. And then I decided to stay in Newcastle, until after the funeral and whatnot, and be with my dad and the rest of my family and stuff. And the next day, my friend Darren said, come on, we'll go Newcastle City Centre and we'll just have a wander around the shops, just to get out of the house and take your mind off. I was like, yeah, okay, let's do that. And Ames was out on Northumberland Street. Do you know Ames?
Yeah, DJ.
Yeah. DJ MC. And he gave me a flyer, and Skinny Man was on at the other rooms, which is part of Digital, that night. So I ended up going to that gig, and at that gig I asked Skinny Man's like, oh, you're right, Dap, I've seen you in the magazines, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, this is perfect, he knows who I am. So I was like, are you staying over in Newcastle? He's like, yeah. I was like, in the morning, how much will you do as a verse for? And he's like, I'll do you a verse for NHS prices. And I went, oh, brilliant, NHS is free. And he went, no, £250. I was like, right, okay. So then I did the track with Skinny Man the next day in Dom P's studio, because his studio was still up here. And then recorded a music video for it 6 weeks later. I hit Channel U, and that's when I got the attention of Dom Rampello at RGS Entertainment in Hip Hop Village, which gave me my first. They didn't sign as an artist; they gave me a distribution deal.
Right.
And fast forward to February 2008, because it took all that time to get everything done. My first royalty check came through, my first monthly royalty check, and it was 15 grand. And then it was 8 grand the month after, and it fluctuated between about 6.5 grand and 16 grand for about 3 years. And that's when I really felt like I'd made it. And that's when the standard of the music dropped, because I was just off my face all the time. And it just felt like anything I put out would recoup or make a few grand.
So how old were you then?
I was 28.
So you're 28, you on average, making about 12 grand a month, guaranteed for 3 years. That's pretty much making it, because I know a lot of people now aspire to make this 10 grand a month figure every month. So
then when you move forward a little bit, and it's like, right, so how did I pay Lil Wayne and Akon and artists like that? That's where that money was coming from. It was still very much, I was living a lot better lifestyle than I had been, but it was still very much pump loads of the money back into it.
What do you mean you paid Lil Wayne?
Paid Lil Wayne 10 grand.
For what?
$10,000 in 2008. We did a song.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's on Spotify. And on the remix, I got Talib Kweli and Royce the 5'9" for free. So there's a song with the four of us.
I did not know
that. Did you not?
No, I didn't know that.
That's the biggest track I've ever done. The day that track...
Did you ever speak to him?
Yes, extremely briefly on the phone. There's a Hip Hop Connection article with a 6-page spread on Lil Wayne, and halfway through there's half a page about me, and it's like Lil Wayne's little brother. And it's a little interview with me about the song.
Do you know what's crazy about
that?
But
I went to sleep one night, and when I woke up the next day, that song with Talib, Royce, and Wayne and me was on the front page of every single hip hop site in the world.
Did you feel like you were like the next Eminem? Did you feel like...
No, because I was shit.
I know, mate, but still... See, because I understand when you kind of pay an artist and stuff, like, a lot... I mean, I know that still goes on today, but when you're paying an artist to do something like that, like... Is it a sense of pride, or like, well, anyone can do this if they've got the money?
Well, yes and no, because they still have to accept the song.
Yeah, because they're putting the name to it.
And
so they must have rated you.
And and I mean, that was with the friendship I made early on. I made friendship online with DJ Vlad, who now runs Vlad TV,
Yeah.
and he sorted the Lil Wayne feature out for me. And without him, that wouldn't have happened. And then one of the producers called Quincy Tones, R.I.P. Quincy Jones, by the way, but Quincy Tones, a hip-hop producer from this country, said, if you let me remix that song, I'll get some big artists I already work with on it for free. And at the time, Joel Ortiz and Joe Budden were mentioned, but they ended up not doing the verses, and I got Talib Kweli and Royce of 5'9".
That's mega, that, mate.
And then on the UK remix, there's 8 bars off Professor Green.
Yeah. Because did you support Pro Green
Yes.
in Sunderland?
Yes.
I remember that. I was actually there on the night.
Yeah.
That's actually mad, because obviously Pryor was there as well, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
he was, yeah.
When would you say, because again, sort of that's like an illustrious career, really. I know you're saying you're shit, you're clearly modest, but ultimately, mate, you don't, regardless of your money, you're right, people have got to rate you as an artist. And people, mate, it's almost hard to believe someone like Wayne, Wheezy himself, would accept 10 bags to do a record. Like, that's
It was a favour for DJ Vlad.
Right, I'm with you, right. It's because he's got one of the biggest channels in the world now, hasn't he?
Yeah,
Vlad,
he has.
He's unbelievable.
That was in its infancy back then. Vlad TV was more of a website than it was a YouTube channel
Right,
at the time.
that's absolutely mad. When did your sort of music career come to an end?
Recently, really, to be honest with you, during lockdown, me and Pryor were doing a lot of work together. I mean, through say 2005 to about 2001, we worked 24/7, and we wrote catalogs and catalogs of music. There's literally, the publisher has 1,000 plus titles off it, that are being leased for various different things all the time. And when Pryor passed away, I never really got back into the studio. But just before he passed away, we were talking, because I'd started my first proper YouTube channel, and that was starting to take off, and I was doing 18K on videos at the time, views wise. And we were talking about perhaps that this is, because my heart wasn't in the music anymore, and we'd had a conversation about how a new era was beginning anyway. And then when he passed away, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go, my heart's not in that anymore, I'm going to go at this now.
When did you see him last?
Um,
Because for those who don't know, he was a beatboxer. He was multi-talented.
Yeah, beatboxer, producer, dancer, body popper, break dancer, very talented guy, and my best friend. So while we were both living in Tynemouth at the time, we only lived around the corner from us, and I seen him. The very last time I saw him was he was in hospital, and it was 8 days before he passed away.
Right, I see.
And that was December 2021.
Do you think he knew what was going to happen?
I think, yeah, I do.
I think people say, don't they, deep down they know when things are going to go wrong, type of thing. And do you think, because I know you mentioned at the start, and I think as well it's worth saying for the viewers, you actually said to me, I think it was off camera, you went, this is the first time you saw me sober.
This is the first time in life you've ever seen me sober.
That's mad, because obviously I'd heard things about the addiction stuff and all the rest of it, but I never knew how bad it got. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I want to say, congratulations. You're 11 months sober, mate, and that's unbelievable, because, we know Paul Venis, for instance, and I know the amount of work he's done and helped people. And when I see someone like yourself, it just goes to show, regardless, you can lose your best friends, you can go through this, you can go from the high, having Lil Wayne on a track, you're an aspiring music artist, the grain is against you, you're coming from the northeast, you're moving up and down the country, you've got all this shit, you probably, in a way, some of the stuff, because obviously you're 44 now?
Yeah.
You probably peaked just before the right time, in a way.
Yeah.
And I think, I can only imagine how that must feel, and then obviously to battle addiction. So I just want to say I appreciate you coming down, mate, and obviously telling your story, because I know that someone, and this is the goal from this, mate, I want someone to watch this and go, do you know what? I can fucking go sober and all.
Yeah.
And that I didn't give a shit about anything else. That is, the fact that you've done that shows it can be done. And long may that continue for you, mate.
It's really is never, ever, ever too late. I mean, I can remember reading a comment on YouTube maybe 10 years ago, and it said, Dapsy is a pure junkie. And I can remember reading it and thought, he's right. You know what I mean? And my life, I mean, drugs did have that positive effects for me at some point, but that's a distant memory now. I mean, I used to take speed, and the reason I got so much more work done than anybody else is I would sleep twice a week. I would sleep on a Wednesday and a Sunday. When I stopped taking, I gave up 2 years ago now, and I'm 11 months completely sober. But when I gave up, I even had to reduce my workload by about 70 hours a week to make room to sleep.
That's crazy. That just shows the levels of addiction. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how, like, what was the lowest point through your addiction?
The lowest point for me was just before I stopped. Was just like my personal lowest was just before I stopped using, when I realised that I'd isolated myself from everybody and I was just sitting in a room alone using, and not enjoying a single second of it, and spending thousands and thousands of pounds on it.
Were you suicidal in that at any
No,
point?
I've never been suicidal. You know what I mean? I haven't. If anybody ever tells you I killed myself, I probably didn't. But no, I've never been suicidal as such. But I've been not happy in my own skin.
How did you?
I've been lying in bed before after being absolutely out of my mind for weeks on end, and thought if I don't wake up tomorrow, I don't particularly care. But I've never had genuine thoughts of taking my own life. No.
How did you take the step to actually go, I'm gone clean?
So I just woke up one day and I thought, that's it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'd had enough. And
But I'm surely you've had this thought before.
I've tried. I've done 28 days clean probably 100 times. Do you know what I mean? At one point, I even pretended to be sober for 2.5 years. You know what I mean? But what was different this time is I told all my friends, I was like, I'm really serious this time. I'm not doing it anymore. One of my friends, Rachel, reached out to Paul Venis and said, I know you and Craig don't know each other, but I know, but we do definitely, well, we do watch each other's content. And she was like, he really looks up to you and you're sober. He's serious about it. Can you give him a ring and just talk to him? And Paul Venis rang me the next night, so I was coming up to 32 hours since I'd taken anything. And he told me to go to an NA meeting. And we had a good little chat on the phone. And people have told me to go to meetings for years. And I think this is sort of an example of the addict behaviour. I used to always think I was clever, I knew more than everybody else. It turns out I really don't. So because Paul Venis had said it to us, and it's somebody I looked up to, I thought, right, okay, let's try one of these meetings. And I walked in and it changed my life. It changed my life. I go I'm going to one after this, every single Wednesday and every Sunday, religiously for the last 11 months. And just the warmth, understanding, everything about being in those rooms is like, nobody can understand an addict like another addict.
Are you clean from everything? So you
Absolutely
don't smoke,
everything.
don't vape, don't knout?
I do vape. I've never smoked. I picked up vaping last year somehow.
But
I
at
do
least
vape.
it's just vaping and it's compared to what you were.
I've never been a weed smoker. I was more into stimulants and harder drugs. But not a drop of alcohol. No mind-altering substance at all.
And how have you truly found it?
Excellent. It's been, when I came up to 6 months sober, I thought I felt back to my normal self. But then when I got to 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 months, I was like, wow, I was still feeling shit after 6 months. Every single day I wake up and I feel better than I did the day before. Like I say, like last night I was sitting there and I was just sitting smiling, like playing with a cat, and I just thought, for the first time in my life, I think I finally love myself.
Well done, mate. That's unbelievable to hear that, because I think that's something that people will fail to recognise, and that's probably why they're in addiction, because they didn't love themselves or they're abusing themselves. And I think ultimately there's got to be some trauma or something deep down why you're doing what you do. And I think a lot of people who are recovering addicts and stuff will say, I thought I was above that. I didn't make it. I can control it.
Yeah, I've been sitting in dens before when I was living in Biker. 2019, I was sitting in a den in Biker smoking with people. One of the guys there had a hole in his leg about that big, off injecting himself, and it had gone septic. And I can remember there, sitting there, smoking, thinking, fucking look at the state of these. I'm not like these people. But I was one of them. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like them type of circles pull you down? Like they don't want you to get clean. They want you there with them doing them things.
Certainly, but to be honest with you, at the time I had left who are my, because you have friends that are your real friends, and then when you get into those circles, you have friends that aren't really your friends, are just people you take drugs with. And I would kind of purposely search out those friend groups, because they're the people that won't hassle me, and they're the people I can smoke in front of and stuff like that, and they won't say, "What the fuck are you doing, Craig?" Like your real friends will.
Yeah, I get that.
I've met people in the rooms that have left their family home to go and live on the streets so they could drink and take stuff more without the family stressing them out for it. Like
Isn't
people
that
that have made a
crazy?
conscious decision to do that, to choose the drugs over
See,
everything
it's
else.
easy for me to say in sound mind to
Yeah.
be like, that's crazy, but I also
It
understand.
is crazy.
But I also understand when you're going through that, you don't want to be out. You
No.
want to smoke the stuff. You want to do what, you know what I mean? You kind of want that. So I totally get it. You mentioned, Craig, earlier, I don't know how much you want to talk about. You mentioned going to prison. I didn't actually know that.
If you don't know by now, I run a business called The Content PT. I create content for influencers, PTs, online coaches and fitness brands all around the world. So if you are someone who's in need for sexy content for your social media, or you really want to maintain a competitive edge in your industry, drop me a DM on Instagram.
Yeah, 2003 I went to prison, so, was it 2003? I was 2003, I'm sure. So I got sentenced to 6 months for an insurance fraud I did. Basically what had happened is, with all my money off the rave tapes, back in those days, there wasn't any like PC-based studios. There wasn't, like the programs and that you get now. What you used to do is you used to have an Amiga or an Atari ST and use a program that would run MIDI through hardware. And the hardware units were extremely expensive. So like an Akai sampler was about $2,000. An EMU sound module was like £600-700.
Like the MPCs and all that.
Yeah, in those days. And I had a rack of MIDI hardware that I'd bought a piece at a time from the money with the tapes, worth about 25 grand. And I couldn't use it. I just couldn't use it. Everything I did on it sounded diabolical. I didn't know any music theory. I didn't know what I was doing. And there was no YouTube. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like now you're never a couple of YouTube tutorials away from being able to do anything. Literally anything. Fix your cooker. You know what I mean? Like anything you
Mate,
want.
there's people building Aston Martins on YouTube now.
Yeah, I've seen my dad with the washing machine in parts, and I'm going, "What you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, I ordered this off the internet. You just swap it over." I've been watching a tutorial on it, and I'm thinking, because I know he doesn't know anything about fixing washing machines, but everything's easy once somebody shows you or tells you how to do it. So what I decided to do is somebody was like, "Oh, you should do an insurance job on it." And I was like, "What do you mean?" They were like, "Well, you insure it, and then you pretend it's been nicked in a burglary." And I was like, "Sounds easy, that." So I rang an insurance company, got the representative, came out, because there was no sign up online then, came out, looked at all the stuff, gives a quote. I paid the £120 for the year's insurance. 2 or 3 months later, had a friend who did double glazing for a living, and he took the window out from the outside, like unpicked all the frame and whatnot, laid the bit of thing, and wore gloves when he did it, and ran in and opened all the drawers with these gloves on, and that. So there was fingerprints well, not fingerprints everywhere, but you know what I mean. Then I rang the police, put an insurance claim in. The insurance company paid out £21,500. And then a few months down the line, one of my friends I fell out with. So I did everything right except for the only mistake I made doing this. The thing that got me caught is I told people about it. One of my friends I fell out with went to the police, told them everything.
Really? They actually went out of the way to tell the police?
And where the stuff was hidden and everything. And that's how I got caught. So I went to court, I pled guilty, Crown Court pled guilty, sentenced to 6 months. Luckily for me, because it was a non-violent crime, I did 6 weeks, because you do half your sentence, so you do 3 months. So I did 6 weeks inside and then 6 weeks on a tag.
What was it like? What prison you go to?
I went to Durham for the first 2 weeks, and then I went to Wealdstone Open Jail outside of Leeds.
Obviously, you'll have been an addict at the time.
At the time, I was on coke, so the withdrawal wasn't really
So what were you thinking when you were in that paddy wagon from the court on your way to Durham? Were you thinking, I'm a piece of shit here?
Just really going through the motions, really. I can remember going through the motions all the way there. I went from like terrified, oh Christ, I'm going to jail, I'm going to get beat up, I'm going to get, sexually assaulted, these crazy stories and that you hear. Because bearing in mind the type of upbringing I've had, at that point I didn't even know anybody that had been to jail. So it's not like I could say to somebody, what's it like? And again, there was no YouTube, so you couldn't look up and listen to some real jail tales or anything. And then so I went from being terrified to like, oh, I'm going to jail. I'm like a real rapper now. To back to terrified, to crying, to happy, to sad, to like. But to be honest with you, being scared of going to jail, because I knew I was going to jail before I went, and being scared of going was a lot worse than actually being there. But at the same time, I knew that when I was being taken from the dock down into the cells before you go into the Group 4 bus to go to jail, the guy in the court, I don't know what he's called, the security
or something.
Yeah, the security guard or whatever, asked us what I'd been done for, and he was like, "Oh, you'll get tagged for that. You'll be out in 6 weeks," and that changed my whole perception of the 6 months. It's only 6 weeks. It's school holidays. Do you know what I mean? It's not that long. So I might have been I might have had a very different opinion if I'd have been there for a year or 2
Did you
years
meet
or
people
7
though?
years.
You will have met people who were doing a lot longer though. So did that not kind? I mean, I know the end was in sight for you, but you're in them four walls.
Yeah.
What was the experience like? Did you become accustomed to it quick?
Yeah,
Did you make friends in there? Were you victimized?
I just stayed inside my own head. This is one of the few occasions where my ADHD has been a gift, a huge gift, because I'm able to occupy myself and create all these, like dream worlds and whatnot in my head in an empty room. And I just went inside myself, and like I say, I just wrote song after song after song after song. In Durham for the first 2 weeks, I was locked up 23 and a half hours a day. Now, it sounds like torture, but at the time, it didn't seem that bad. And also, though, as well, like I'd been on at that point for, years at that point, I caught up on a lot of sleep as well the first 2 weeks I was there. You know what I mean? I slept a lot. I probably slept the majority of the first week, but I'd been awake for 4 days before I went, and
Did you see out in there? Did you see out?
I didn't see anything. No, I wish I had some exciting stories to tell you, but no, it was...
Trying to fish them out. How did it compare to Wheelston?
Wheelston was brilliant. As daft as it sounds, Wheelston, you had your own cell. You had a key to your cell. There was no bars on the windows with double glazed windows. I could have walked out the front gate at Wheelston and nobody would stop you.
You know, when you were doing this, like you staged that burglary and all that, why did you do it?
Because I had a load of equipment I couldn't use.
Could you not sell it?
Well, the
might
idea
lose a couple of grand,
was to get the 20 grand and then sell it as well.
Yeah, I get that. Like,
I don't know. I suppose it was my first and last attempt at being a criminal. It didn't go very well. I mean, jail certainly worked because I've never been back.
yeah, that's fair enough. Like, but did you see? Because it's almost like, I mean, I'd understand if you're like, I was trying to fund this addiction, so I had to get the money, but it was literally just,
no, I was
you were
just
being
greedy.
daft,
I was
weren't you?
just greedy, daft and greedy.
It's important to recognise that. Like, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Did
And greedy people get caught.
Did
there's
people
a lot of
drop
truth
off
in
when
that.
you went to prison?
Sorry?
Did people around you drop off? Did they think, we're not going to bother with them anymore?
No, because like I say, I'm from a background where I didn't know anybody that had been to jail and whatnot. It made us all a bit more exciting, I think, in their eyes.
Yeah, that's it, like, isn't it? Do you find that? I know that sounds mad because you're doing your own thing. You
And
clearly,
it is just a white collar crime as well. Do you know what I mean?
no, I get that.
It's still wrong.
But does it stop you from going to America and all that?
No. I've been to Florida 3 times. I was in Vegas in September.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I've been in Vegas last 3 years in a row.
Are you got a family, Craig?
No,
Do you want kids or not?
I don't think so.
You never.
Not at 44. No.
Not something that.
I still feel like one myself, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I suppose, mate, you've kind of had that life where it's almost took you this long to get to that point. So at least the knowledge and the things that you're putting out there that can help people. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the way I look at it. Like, you haven't. I'm not saying you haven't missed out, because I believe, when I had my first child, I was like, yeah, like. Well, I'm saying my first time, my only child, but like, it was the best thing that ever happened. But before that, I remember being so nervous, like, I'm not even ready to be a dad. But when it happens, it's like just a different feeling altogether. But it gives you the sense of hunger. That's what it gives. I mean, I was always hungry, but it was like a different level. Like, it's like a ferocious and need to succeed type of level. But clearly, you've always had that anyway. I want to talk about the comedy, because obviously, people who don't know you, you were a stand-up comedian. I'd seen some of your stuff online.
Very briefly.
That shit there terrifies me. Like, the thought of, mate, my first podcast, I was shit scared.
Right.
And I've always been, with people and did stuff on camera and always been around, like, celebrities and all that shit. They've never fazed us. It's the actual retards. People are going to be looking at you as well now. Telling jokes, the fear of them not landing, like, that scares the shit out of me. What was that like? Why did you bother getting into that?
Well, right, I've always loved comedy. Always loved it. I'm a huge comedy fan. I've seen practically every comedian there is live. Who did I go and see recently? I mean, I've seen Dave Chappelle, Ricky Gervais, Louis C.K., everybody, Chris Rock, years ago now. And it's just something I always wanted. I always thought, when this music thing's finished, I'm going to try stand-up comedy. And then I thought, right, let's do it. So I did this 12-week course thing, where it's very similar, the white collar boxing thing you can do, where you do like a little course kind of thing, and then you sell tickets to your friends and they give the money to charity.
Have you had one of them events?
I haven't, but I've been part of one doing this. So I did that. And at the end you do a gig at the Stand in Newcastle. And I just thought, you know what it is? I thought, I've been on stage so many times. I've got stage presence and I'm quite confident on stage. And I thought, I've been on stage trying to convince audiences that weren't there to see a Geordie rapper to like me music and watch people just stand there like, when's he going to be finished? I don't know. Should we go for a cigarette? You know what I mean? I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I've done music that's bombed loads of times. You know what I mean? I'm like, especially when we first started out, I'm used to walking on stage and the crowd being silent. So if no one laughs, I'll just stand there in the awkwardness. But luckily it worked out. The first set I did some horrific jokes. I don't know why. Probably just the crazy mind frame I was in at the time. I wanted to be like, I wanted to shock people. I wanted to do shock humor. When
You'll have been doing it before you came sober and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never done it sober.
I was going to ask you, well, you've never done it sober, but are you confident as a person?
I think so, yeah.
Or do you think a lot of that has been masked by false confidence?
You know what it is, right? Because of my ADHD and whatnot, and because stimulants, calm people with ADHD down, I thought I had anxiety until I stopped taking drugs, and it went away. So I think that the drugs I thought the drugs were helping me at the time, but they weren't. They were hindering me. I feel far more confident sitting here talking to you now than I ever did in my music career. But I thought I was confident at the time.
Yet the perception is everything I ever saw of you, you look like the most confident guy in the room.
Yeah.
All the time. Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like crazy to think like when you're in your soundest of minds and you're sober and you're 11 months sober and you're doing well and you're healthier and you're in this room, yet you feel more confident doing this. Yeah. It kind of shows me, imagine what you could have done then and all.
Yeah, I know. There's been over the past sort of few months, there's been a lot of realization of a lot of, the what ifs and if I'd have done this better and whatnot. But at the same time, it got me here now.
And what's special about what you've done, mate? And this is what you've got to give yourself credit for. Again, you've found that love for yourself, which is that is. I mean, nothing else really matters at that point. But you've almost created a second chance. Yeah. To be like, right, I'm sober. If I want to do music again, if I want to do comedy again, I get another crack at the whip. What do you want to do with your future now? Because I know obviously you're building these multiple YouTube channels. You've got all this stuff going on. What's your actual goal? Who is Craig?
Craig now is very much really about promoting recovery. And, I've started a podcast. It's the least viewed thing that I do, but it's the thing, like you were saying with ads, lad, it's the happiest that you were in creating content. And that's the same for me with this podcast. Every episode I talk to a different addict. They're not artists. They're just normal people who tell you their stories from start to finish.
It's fulfilling as well, isn't it? Because this is why I set it up, like speaking to people like yourself. And I've had all different types of people on. And it's like, whether it's a celebrity or the bloke next door, there's no difference. It's the story that I get. Do you know what I mean? The profile guns, it's more about, yes, you've got to do certain things for views and maybe clickbait some titles here and then. And if people don't understand that, then they don't understand, you've got to try and grow. What's the point of creating a piece of content if no one's going to see it? You want to help people, don't you? And I always try and, kind of theme every episode on overcoming adversity. And I think obviously you've depicted that very well with, you are literally the epitome of overcoming adversity, and you've done it. And I think to go from growing up in Wall's End to doing the music thing to sort of coming away from it to going through the trauma of losing your best mate, to battling addiction, it's literally, you've covered the heights, the lows, you've soul searching, finding yourself, like you've done it all. You've done comedy, like I would say you're what I would call a true creative, someone who just explores doing different things. And that's why I'm really keen on, where do you want to go? Because I wouldn't be surprised if I heard in a year's time you create an empire doing you've got your own washing machine company. I wouldn't put it past you, because I know that I'm the same. I said this to someone the other day. Someone was like, Ads, do you actually like filming stuff and creating content? And I was like, I love the business element. If someone give me a lawnmower now, I'd be excited about, right, how many doors can I knock on? What kind of business can I build? Who can I tell? That's the shit I'm bothered about. It's weird, mate. So I'm like, I don't even know if I like creating content. Yeah. I just know that I like doing something where there's some growth.
My friend said to me once, he said, you could give you, Craig, he said, a little square of carpet with some dog shit on it and you'd find a way to make money out of it.
You would know, wouldn't you? That's the thing, isn't it? So where do you want to go?
I want to be a bigger creator as humanly possible, but my heart is in promoting the message of recovery. through the Giving It Away podcast. I've got 7 episodes out, and I'm going to start clipping them up and start Instagrams and Facebooks for it and all that, and keep it separate from the other stuff. So to do that, and then just keep building my YouTube channel. I'm really enjoying making like sort of comedy content at the moment. I have a live channel where I stream from Monday to Friday, 12 till 1 every afternoon. There's a bare knuckle boxer from Carlisle called Decker Heggie that nobody likes, and we take the piss out of him for an hour a day.
I was going to ask you about this because that corner of YouTube, it's almost like an underworld little beefing corner, and there's always back and forths and people. Do you do that purely for views?
No, I did it because when I started in the madness of drugs in 2021, I was very high. I used to love the drama. I used to love being involved in drama. I'm a very different person now. Decker's in jail at the moment awaiting trial on the 2nd of December. Once that trial's done and he goes to jail for a few years, I'm leaving that corner of YouTube completely. But I see that as a good end to the story. Do you know what I mean? Like Decker goes to jail for a few days and then Hedgehog Man goes and does content on other subjects.
Because it's kind of like journalism. Have you ever seen the other side of that? Like, have you ever been targeted for getting involved with all that stuff? Have you?
Yes.
What's happened there?
I used to have a comedy night in Tynemouth. Had people ringing the venue up, threatening them to stop the event and saying Decker was going to come down and get us and this and that and blah, blah, blah. So they've lost his comedy nights. Well, all sorts of stuff.
Does it worry you, that
people
stuff?
People contacting my partner's workplace. The trolling's out of hand. It doesn't worry me as such because a lot of it's just faceless cowards behind accounts. But at the same time, now I'm in a mindset where at the time I didn't used to mind at the time, but now I'm like, I don't want that in my life anymore. It's not who I am anymore. You know what I mean? Like I used to get out of bed in the morning for drama at one point, but then when you stop the ridiculous amounts of alcohol. And I'm just a calmer person now. I don't want to be dealing with that on a daily basis. I'm much more comfortable doing stuff like this or, interviewing an addict about the past and stuff like that, as opposed to antagonizing people. Because I've had to put my foot down a few times with, like, my friends say that, like, when I get into something, I get carried away with myself. And it's like, I've had to, like, wind my neck in a few times on YouTube. I've done a lot more recently.
I know that it's definitely like, even because I found that I'm filming a lot of fighters and all the rest of it. I've got fighters coming in tonight, like, and I'm noticing that obviously a lot of people like that stuff. I'm a big fan of fighting anyway. Like, I love boxing, love bare knuckle, love MMA. I love it all. I love all kind of combat sport. And for me, it's just, I'm a fan of that. So, and there's always an adversity piece. To become a tough twat, you've went through some stuff. Yeah. It's never happened where I had a smooth life, did well at school, had hot girlfriends, and then just end up being tough as alcoholic.
And then I realised I like getting punched in the face.
It doesn't happen. But for you, mate, like, what I kind of want to sort of close the interview on, Craig, because I feel like I want to see you back in music.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean that because I feel like even from a listener of your stuff back in the day, I want to see the clean, mature, head in the game, no dicking around. All right, then let's see what you can do.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to challenge you. I want to see what you can do. Whether you pick the mic back up or not, I just feel like you've got so much in you. Fucking make a mix. Do something like
2025, there will be a new music project from us, definitely.
Well, I could see you getting involved in acting and all.
Yeah, I've done a few little parts. I was in a film called A New Breed of Criminal.
Right.
Paul Venis, Danny Christie were in that as well. And I did a quite a large part in what I call the worst film ever made. It got released on DVD, but it looks like a student project. In fact, it looks worse than a student project. It's called The Stone, No Soul Unturned. In fact, the other night, last week on Halloween, for a laugh, I sat and watched it and reacted to it on my YouTube channel. But yeah, I'm open to do anything really, as long as it's fun.
Well, I hope you have an unbelievable YouTube career, mate, because obviously I know how hard this game is. It's absolutely solid. Do you know, here's a random one. They reckon 10,000 subscribers on YouTube is about the same as 150k on Instagram. It's such a good rewarding feeling as well when you see people tune in. Even with this podcast, when people they tell us and they're watching, it's like, it's such a, all we're doing is having a crack.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing. And it's like, for me, I'll leave because the way I get energy, mate, is speaking to people. That's how I am as a person. I cannot be on my own. I've got to be around people and bounce off people and ideas. I know there's already things that I'm thinking of when I have these conversations. I'm like, oh, well, how about we do this? How about we do that? Well, why don't you get into, not so much become a comedian, but maybe film some comedians and help them do their thing, because they're a hustler and they've been through some stuff, and a lot of the jokes they tell, there's just loads of, me mind just mega for stuff like that, mate. So I just want to say thank you so much, mate, for coming on the pod.
Thank you for having me on it.
If you've got anything that you can say to anyone, mate, if there's anything where, you know, there could be someone listening or watching this, mate, who they've picked up that pipe, they're sitting there, and I know that's far-fetched, but they might just watch this episode. Is there anything you can say to them personally?
Yeah, definitely. It's never, ever, ever too late to change yourself. Never too late. Go to an NA meeting, ring somebody you know who's in recovery. Just reach out to somebody, and help is there if you need it.
And would you offer that help if someone reaches out to you?
100%. I speak to many people through the podcast, and even through just my vlog channel, because, you know, I've been very honest about my drugs use on YouTube, even when I was on it. And a lot of people have reached out to me on a daily basis already. And I don't mind. Do you know what I mean? Every message I get starts with, "I'm sorry for bothering you. You're not bothering us. Send us a message." No, I'd much rather they text me than a dealer.
I can't say it better myself, mate. So if you're watching this, people, honestly, just give us a link or something where people can contact you, mate. Contact Craig, because he's been through it. Obviously, you know the crack. You know what I mean? You know, literally. You've been through it, and ultimately, mate, it's good to see that you can get out the other side, and long may it continue for you, bro.
Thank you very much for having me, mate.
No worries at all, mate. Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Cheers, bro. So you've made it to the end of this one. You're brave. But if you like this episode and you want to see more like this, click here and watch it.